So I returned to my Mandalorian armor build. I've taken these patterns from the Wizard of Flight's patterns that were uploaded on the Mandalorian Mercs website. You can download those for free. I initially thought I was going to be using these patterns for Sentra. I was going to be tracing the patterns out and cutting them out of the 3mm or 6mm Sentra. I never got around to getting that. So I also wanted to do a comparison between Fiberglass and Sentra. So this video is going to show you how I took cardboard, covered it with polyester resin and fiberglass, and built my Mandalorian Mercs costume, the upper armor. So let's go ahead and get started here. We'll cut our cereal box cardboard down to size. The cereal box itself is about 1 millimeter thick, so once you get two pieces together, that'll make up your 2mm cardboard. That's the exact same size that I used for the helmet build that I did a couple of years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this down to size, make sure I've got straight edges, and then once those pieces are ready to go, again, see, when I stack them together, you'll get your 2mm there. I'm going to go ahead and use contact cement to bond these pieces together. I chose to use the contact cement on the inside of the cereal boxes, thinking that I would get a better or stronger bond with the brown cardboard glued to the other brown cardboard. I probably should have just went ahead and glued the labeling together, so the outsides of the boxes. Probably would have been better to do that, just to go ahead and use the contact cement for the outsides of the box, sticking those two together, and then that would leave the brown side available to suck up as much of that polyester resin as possible. But again, either way you decide to do it, it's going to work. So once you get your contact cement applied quite liberally to all the sides, you're going to want to wait about 5 minutes. Once it dries, it'll be dry to the touch. You'll go ahead and line those up. I use the flaps for the top and bottom of the cereal box to line up the edges. And then once you put those two pieces together, you want to put something heavy on top. I used one of my granite slabs that I use for skiving with my leather work to put that in place. After a little while, went ahead and took that slab off and traced my pattern on top. Then I went ahead and started cutting. You'll see my favorite brass handled knife. I'm cutting all of the straight edges first. Just want to get rid of a lot of the waste cardboard before I go back and try to cut in any of the details. Again, using a straight edge, I find, is the easiest when you're cutting. And again, using multiple passes, you don't have to use a lot of pressure, but again, once you've removed that excess waste, you can go back and cut the details, which were those curved pieces. Once I have all of my upper armor patterns traced over and cut out, I will be ready to start shaping that. Again, measuring, make sure it's 2mm. I'll start shaping that with water and just bending it, holding it in place, and then I'll cover the outside with polyester resin, and that's what you see here. I've covered one side of the belly piece with resin already. It's still kind of pliable, so I'm going to go back into the inside and cover that with fiberglass chop strand. So I'm going to be out here on my balcony. Make sure we use our protective equipment. So I have a respirator and gloves. You definitely want to use a respirator and stay in a well ventilated area, especially because you have fiberglass. You don't want to breathe that stuff in, but also the polyester resin itself, you do not want to breathe that in. Over time, I joked in another video that you might have a hard time remembering your name or doing simple math equations, maybe lose track of time. But I've cut some fiberglass to size. I'm going to go ahead and wet the inside of the piece. You'll notice I have a string there. I use that twine to kind of hold the shape that I wanted, because it looked like it was a little too wide after my initial resin on the outside. So I want this fiberglass and chop strand and the polyester resin on the inside to hold the shape. So once you've mixed that, you've got your hardener in. You only have a limited amount of time to use this before it will start to cure. So you want to make sure you get liberal coatings on the inside. Start applying your chop strand, and then you want to wet the top of it. Now it takes a couple of hours for this to cure, so you want to make sure again that you've got enough of the resin saturated into the fiberglass itself. You'll see here I went ahead and added some extra pieces as well, and then I'll use resin to cover the rest of the inside. I had to mix up a couple extra batches. It's better to mix multiple batches than try to do one big batch to cover a large area, just because you don't want that to harden and cure before you have all of your surfaces covered. So again, I'm using the resin and multiple layers of the fiberglass chop strand, and this will also allow the inside of the armor to have a lot of strength. And you're not going to see this, but it's going to be on the inside facing the flak vest. So I went back and revisited. You can see here, this is off my camera on my phone. I green cut, so before it had cured, I waited about probably 25 minutes after I'd applied the resin. I went back and trimmed off the edges, and then I also applied some resin on the outside of the upper armor. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here, using the resin on the inside to apply some chop strand. I held the chop strand in place actually with the Gorilla Glue spray. So I sprayed that down and then applied the chop strand where I needed it, and then I'll just start wetting that using the same technique that you just saw before. When I come back, you can see I've actually applied additional resin to the outside edges of the belly piece, and I've also green trimmed the chest pieces. So this is almost ready to go. I'm going to start adding some extra layers of resin to give it a little more strength, then I can start shaping it. Again, this is just a build. It's an option. If you don't have Sentra, or if you can't get in touch with a place that sells Sentra, you can easily take $25, $30, and you can build your own armor with that. I do appreciate you guys watching this. I'm building my own Mandalorian Mercs costume, and that's what these videos are showcasing. But I did find out that I made a mistake on my upper armor. I don't know if it was bad resin or bad hardener. I was having some issues, multiple tries, still couldn't get it fixed. I had to resort to a very old school technique, which was called Rondo. And if you guys stay tuned and come back and watch the next video that I upload, I'll show you exactly how I was able to save this build. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.